Welcome on in to a special edition, a live edition of the Crimson Corner podcast. It's powered by KSLSports.com. I'm your host and Utes insider, Trevor Allen, and today is the beginning of fall camp. Camp Kyle is underway today. I will be heading up on the hill here in probably about an hour or so. I'll be driving up, and then we'll have a media availability at around 6 o'clock Mountain Time, given that everything's on time, which we all know is not. But again, stay tuned at Trevor A Sports or at KSL Sports is where you will find us. But joining me to preview fall camp, he's not in Utah anymore, but he still knows football. He still knows the University of Utah. We go to former Utah quarterback Drew Lisk. Drew, how are you, man?
Doing great. How you doing?
Doing good. So you went and led a comeback against Washington State, and now you're living the big life in San Francisco. Is that right?
That's correct. Just moved here 2 days ago. So still getting settled in a little bit before kicking off the life after being an athlete.
Yeah. So what is the feeling like? I mean, you've obviously gone through this a couple of years, or a few years. You know, first day of fall camp. How are you feeling? What is going through your mind as you guys are starting fall camp?
There's just a ton of energy in everyone in the room, on the field. Excitement for sure to get out there. You know, it's the first time collectively as a team that you get back on the field with a ball, and the coaches out there really organized. You know, you're doing some individuals, specific some group throwing over the summer, but you know, it's the first official day back out. Everyone's excited to start again. It's easy. The coaches always say, you know, it's easy to, at the end of the first practice, the message is always, today was great, you know, energy was great, but you got to come out and do it again tomorrow, right? Because it's easy that first day. Everyone's excited. The challenge is showing up and doing it day after day after day, because it ultimately becomes a grind. That 3-week stretch of practice only, no games.
Yeah. And then how long does that feeling of excitement for fall camp last before you're just ready to go up against another team?
I'd say, you know, after the first week or so, it's, you know, you start getting into that second week, and it's like you're going against the same defense, or the defense is going against the same offense every day. It's just kind of like, all right, I'd say definitely by towards the end of the second week, you're like, okay, we feel like we're ready to play someone else. You're probably not really ready yet, you know, realistically, but the feeling of wanting to go up against someone new, starts creeping in for sure that second week.
How much has going up against these Utah defenses over the last 4 or 5 years helped out the quarterback position, including you, who's gone up against these guys? How much does it help kind of speed up the progress of a quarterback at Utah?
I think a ton, whether it's, you know, in practice reps, ones versus ones, or even like for me, being the scout quarterback for a couple of years. I know even talking to Cam from his first redshirt year, or his not redshirt, but his when he had to sit out after transferring. His first year when he ran the scout team, you know, talking to him, I think we would both tell you, you know, it makes you better for sure, even though you're kind of just doing what the card is saying for the most part. It's a legitimate defense, national defense. So it helps in that regard. It helps in practice, team versus team. I mean, they're good, obviously, really good. So getting to practice against them day in and day out, you know, not only do they get better working on what they do, but the offense gets a great challenge each day.
It's also another year and another fall camp where there's a quarterback battle. You were in that quarterback battle last year with Jake and Cam. Just kind of give our audience kind of a in-depth analysis on what kind of happens in these quarterback battles. Obviously, you guys are battling it out, but is it tense? I mean, what are kind of the feelings knowing that you're trying to beat out one or two other guys for that starter job?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tense internally, like intense. You know, you're trying to be competitive and, you know, fuel yourself. But I think for every battle I've been a part of, you know, it's been, you know, you're not pulling against the other guy, right? It's not, oh, I want him to do bad. It's, I want to be great. So it's just a a challenge each day, each rep, of going out there, and they usually do a pretty good job of splitting up the reps. This guy gets the ones and then he gets the twos and vice versa. So it's about making it all count, because every rep's on tape and it all counts. So got to make the most of everything you get.
Knowing Kyle Whittingham the way that I do, he's probably not going to tell us who's going to be starting this year until they trot out for that first series against Weber State. But just, I mean, for just kind of looking back on last year, and I know every year's different. Obviously, Charlie Brewer and Cam Rising, we already know it's already a 2-horse race heading into camp. But kind of tell us that timeline of when they narrowed it down to Cam being that starter against USC last year.
I want to say it was probably around the 2-week range. I mean, as a coach, if you feel confident in ahead of time enough, you'd like to give your guy the nod. Let him start to settle in and get comfortable without having to worry about, is it mine, is it not, the job. I think that 2-week window is probably, like you said, whether or not it gets announced then publicly, probably won't. But yeah. But I mean, I would imagine, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine internally it's probably around that 2 to 3, probably 2 weeks or so before the first game, unless it's just too close to call still. That remains to be seen, I guess. But you like to give your guy a little bit of time to settle in and let the offense, he starts accumulating all the reps with the ones, opposed to mixing and mashing, kind of work to build that chemistry and that flow with the first team. So 2 weeks or so is probably the best timing.
When obviously the whole storyline is Cam hurting his shoulder in like the second, or it's I think early second quarter against the Trojans in the season opener. I think he had like 17 snaps altogether from what I've heard.
Not much.
And you obviously bring in Charlie Brewer from Baylor, who has 4 years of Big 12 experience and has thrown for 9,700 yards or something like that. And so obviously a lot of people are going in thinking that this is Charlie's job to lose. What does Cam Rising need to do in order to beat out Charlie Brewer?
I think first and foremost, prove that he's healthy, prove that he's full strength. He can make all the throws that he's always been able to make before the injury. I think that's first and foremost for him, because if he's not, if there's any signs of, not looking ready, shoulder not looking and feeling how it should, then that'll be tough for him for sure. So hope he's healthy. I think other than that, though, is just for him, I guess, use the advantage of having a year or 2 years in the offense. I'm sure Charlie, being a 3 or 4 year vet himself, probably getting a pretty quick grasp of the offense himself. So, long run, it may not be a huge advantage for Cam, but Cam's smart. I've been in the room with him. He knows what the ins and outs of the playbook. It's just really about making plays and making stuff happen in practice, showing that you can do it, make the throws, and and also just be that team guy. Bring energy every day. Be the guy that the players want to be around. Which, like for me, not knowing Charlie, I can't speak to him, so it's not to say that he doesn't. But Cam, I know Cam's that kind of guy. So he's got that going for him. Charlie might too, but I know Cam does. So.
Well, and they actually posted some photos from a golf tournament. I think it was like coaches versus players that you were in. You and Britton Covey won. Cam was there. Would you say his shoulder was pretty good, especially with that golf swing?
Looked good to me. So yeah, he said it's feeling good. So whether that's throwing the ball 65 yards, 70 yards in the air, I don't know, but he said it's feeling good, so we'll see what happens.
Another battle going into camp is the running back job. It doesn't seem like there's going to be that one horse back where it's just going to be all the time. Where Ty Jordan last year, just took off with that job basically, I think, third game in. And then obviously the tragedy of what happened to Ty Jordan is obviously still fresh on everyone's mind. But heading into camp, what do you want to see out of the running backs, especially early in camp, because that a typical Utah offense is going to be running the ball.
Sorry, something in my throat. I'd say explosiveness, decisiveness, knowing the assignment, knowing where to line up, and executing. There's quite a bit of nuances in the offense for the running backs, really for all the positions, for alignment, assignment. So I think just proving, they know what to do and they can do it effectively and efficiently. Any running back at this level is going to be skilled. I think just being sharp day in and day out, showing that you can be a key piece and contribute in the passing game, I think is huge, whether that's pass blocking, receiving the ball, both of those. I think those are a couple key things, outside of just obviously being skilled and fast. And if you got the special Zach Moss ability to break tackles too, that doesn't hurt. But I'd say, just executing and, trying to do a little bit, prove that you can be more valuable in more ways and more versatile than the guy next to you. Because, at the end of the day, that's a great thing to have at the running back position.
I know when you were playing in that Washington State game last year, you had a lot of weapons to throw to as far as receivers, tight ends, and all that. And, some of those guys left, Brian Thompson, Samson Nakua, those guys left. And, you get Jalen Dixon back, you get obviously Britton Covey's there, Solomon Enos, he's really, really good. Just trying to see him break out a little bit more as far as being, more productive. We know his skill set, I think, is more just trying to get him the ball. And then obviously Brant Keithy, Cole Fotheringham, Dalton Kincaid, they're all really, really good tight ends. And then you've also mentioned Devon Bailey, but then they also brought in two wide receivers out of the portal, one at a USC, and then Theo Howard out of Oklahoma, who spent I think 3 years with the UCLA Bruins. Just as you look at it on paper, how talented is this wide receiver group?
I think they're good. A lot of talent, a lot of different skill sets within the group, and I think that's going to be the key. And I think that's something that Coach Ludwig does really well. Is he utilizes and plays and game plans according to guys' strengths, puts them in spots to be successful. So not knowing the new guys too well and their specific skill sets, there's across the board, you got a little bit of guys that can do everything. You got some, I think it got not leaked out. I think they talked about it, but the old Smurf group, right? Jalen and Covey, two little quick, shifty guys in there. You got some bigger bodies and Solo and Vele. So, and the new guys, I'm sure, great players, right? From what I've seen and heard. And then mix in the tight ends too. There's quite a few good pass catchers, route runners, and playmakers in those groups.
And then moving up to the O-line, everybody's back. The only one who isn't is Orlando Amana, but he didn't start towards the end of the year, and I think he only started in the opener, and after that he was out. I'm not 100% sure on that. But he's gone. Nick Ford's your center. Jaron Crump showed some really good signs as a freshman playing at tackle. Semi Moala is the other tackle, and then you have Keaton Bills, and then a couple of other guys, Braden Daniels in there as far as guards. How good can this O-line be? Because I know that in past years, especially in that 2019 season, it was really good, but they weren't really tested until the Pac-12 championship game. Now heading into a season where Kyle Whittingham kind of compares to that 2019 team, how good is this O-line?
They're the real deal. Like you said, you lost Orlando. That'll hurt a little bit. He's a great player, but they're deep enough to fill that void without a problem. The biggest thing is going to be, a lot of time during camp, there's a lot of mixing and matching, guys playing different positions. Once they really solidify that starting five and get everyone, locked into that position that they're going to start at come game one, then it's all about meshing as a cohesive group, as a front five, communicating, picking up twists, that sort of thing. Because really that's, again, same thing across the board. The talent's there. It really comes down to with those guys up front, learning to play together, trust each other, communicate, see things. You're seeing the same thing as the guy next to you, passing along twists. So that great group of players led by Coach Harding, a great coach. They'll be ready to go. Like I said, it's just going to be a matter of get that starting five figured out and let them just really mesh.
And then moving on to a defense now that we've already tackled the offensive side of the ball. You look at that D-line. The one thing that has stood out, and we'll probably ask Kyle Whittingham about this after practice today, but Max Tupai is not on the fall camp roster for whatever reason, and which is why we're probably going to talk to Kyle about it. And he was supposed to start opposite of Mika Tafua, but you've still got some really solid edge rushers in Xavier Carlton and Van Fillinger. Where does this D-line stand? I mean, obviously it's Utah football, which means that they're usually pretty stout.
Yeah, again, deep at that position for sure. Similar to the Orlando situation, you hate to lose a great player that can contribute. But like the two guys you mentioned, Xavier and Van, two true freshmen last year that showed up and proved that they belong, and that last year they were close to being ready and got a little bit of game time. I think with a full offseason under their belts, it should be go time for them. So good opportunity for them to step up and prove what they can do, because they're more than capable. And go ahead and start making their legacy early on as another great defensive lineman out of Utah.
And then the backers, you look at it. I mean, Devin Lloyd obviously stands out. We'll get to him in a minute, but with a Nephi Sewell, it looks like it's going to be those two guys starting at backer, just like it was last year. And Nephi looks very comfortable at that backer position, and then also can be moved to be that third safety if you're going up against an air raid offense like the Trojans. Where do you see Sewell taking that next step coming into 2021?
I think, honestly, it's kind of like you touched on, that versatility. Coach Scally is a brilliant defensive mind. I would imagine, from week to week or at certain points during the season, he might, move them around a little bit and say, okay, this week you're going to play a little bit more in coverage, or this week, you're going to be a little bit more involved in the blitz scheme, or stopping the run, depending on the opponent. So I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see, quite a few different situations, positions, or uses of Nephi, because he's such a talented player and can do a lot for you. He's fast, he's strong, great instinctive, just football knowledge. That was probably one of the first things that really stood out when he got to Utah was, this guy's just in the right place. He's always there, so Coach Scally will do a great job, I'm sure, of utilizing that and maximizing that to make this defense as good and as scary as possible.
And then with Devin Lloyd, we were in Hollywood last week for Pac-12 Media Days, and I asked Kyle Whittingham, I said, how good is Devin Lloyd compared to your other backers that you've had since taking over the head coaching job, and he thinks that he can be the best one that he's ever coached. What does that mean? I mean, you've obviously gone up against Devin. You and him have also been teammates. You know him inside and out. What does that mean for him to be up there as among the best linebackers in Kyle Whittingham's history as head coach?
I think it's legit. I mean, that guy is as big of a competitor as you'll find. You see guys talking about it all the time. The hardest worker on the team. There's not a question. There's not a doubt in anyone's mind. If you ask every single player on the team, he would be the answer. And then it shows on the field. He knows his assignment, the guy next to him, to his left, to his right, in front, behind him. He knows where everybody's supposed to be and what everybody's supposed to do. And as the leader of the defense, that's what you want. And then not only is he knowing everything and helping people out and being responsible, but he's doing his job extremely well at an extremely high level, and should be a monster year for him. And he's going to be, he's really going to drive that defense, I think. Obviously, across the board, the whole defense has got should be a lot of talent, a lot of great players, and have a chance to be a really good defensive unit. But I think he's at the core of that, and he deserves all the recognition, respect, and praise that he's getting. Excited to watch him.
And then, with the safeties and corners, I mean, that was the group coming into last year that none of them had any starts under their belt. They were either freshmen or, backups or, special teamers. And, I feel like that they actually played pretty well. But from your vantage point, especially in practices and in games, just observing them for how young they were, how do you think they fared in that 2020 season?
Really well. I think, like you said, at least on the outside, that's what a lot of people were talking about was, oh, the defense, they'll be good up front. How's the back four? How's the secondary going to look? And they answered the call. I think they showed a lot of growth over the years or over the course of the year. You had different guys stepping up, guys that didn't necessarily start the year maybe, and by the end of the season were, reliable guys. And so just all of them having that year, even though it was a shortened season, those 7 games under their belt, I think that was huge. So I'm telling you, with a full off season for those guys and the entire defense as a whole and on the offense, but that entire defense that is basically all back, getting an off season, a spring ball together. Like you said, comparing it to that 2019 team, this defense could be drawing those comparisons to that defense as well. And we all know how good that defense was.
The one thing that fans and obviously the media look at going into Pac-12 Media Day, that is when the preseason poll comes out, and it's all the media votes. I mean, Kyle Whittingham and them don't vote on it, but as media members, it makes them feel special. And I'm saying that because I don't get a vote. They only allow a certain amount of votes per market, and obviously those are already used up. But Utah was picked to finish second in the Pac-12 South. As you look at that, and you look at all of the talent coming back within the Pac-12, is that about where you think Utah is at right now?
That's probably where everyone else sees us. I think there's no doubt in my mind that this team has got every piece and every bit of talent, everything they need to make that run again, to finally, win that Pac-12 championship. Having it on paper or in the room or all that, it doesn't really matter, right? If you got the pieces, it's about making it happen. I don't think we ever looked too much into it while I was there. I don't think they'll be doing that this year. If anything, it's going to be that motivation to say, okay, yeah, we've been, if you don't count last year, weird year, whatever, 2 years back to back representing the Pac-12 South, and you're going to pick a second. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it'll fuel the fire a little bit in that locker room. But from someone who knows pretty well what the team has going into this year, second place might be a little bit of an understatement. So we'll see what happens.
Well, and I was actually going to ask you, how much stock did you guys ever put into that? Did that even come up in any conversations during fall camp or anything like that whenever those polls came out?
I mean, as a team, no, it didn't really get talked about. There might have been a little bit of chatter in the locker room, nothing too much. I think one thing, as the program as a whole, Coach Witt does a great job of, all the position coaches, the players, the focus is pretty sharp in that building. Not a lot of distractions get in the way. Coaches, players do a good job of limiting those and focusing on the task at hand and the ultimate goal, which is whatever you're doing that day to get better so you can win football games.
It's funny how the media picks them to finish second, but we actually talked to the new Pac-12 commissioner, George Kliavkoff, at a Pac-12 Media Day, and I asked him of what he thought about Kyle Whittingham's program, and he said that he thinks that they can be in the running for a national championship. When you hear that from the commissioner, who is just still getting his feet wet within the conference, that's got to be saying something.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I don't think that's I don't think that's out of the question by any means. Like I said, it comes down to not about who you have, what kind of scheme you have. It's all about getting out there and making it happen. So the talk's great, and I know that's what it's what you do, and that's now what I do.
Yep.
But yeah, so at the end of the day, it's up to those guys in the locker room to make it happen, and confident that they can.
Well, we'll actually get to your. I've actually got a really cool announcement to make here at the end of the stream, but I wanted to ask you two more questions as we head into fall camp. If now that you're a member of the media and not a member, of that Utah football team, I have to do this. Prediction for who's going to be the starting quarterback for Utah football when they open up against Weber State.
Oh man, goodness, that's tough.
I mean, obviously it's one of two guys.
Yeah. Goodness, I'll go with Cam. I'll go with Cam and make the bold call. I don't know. A lot of people are saying it'll probably be Charlie just because Cam's coming off
Including me.
injury. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe so. I think at the end of the day they'll make a good decision, and they'll be fine. I'll go with Cam just because Cam's my boy, and I know him pretty well. That's nothing against Charlie whatsoever. I'm sure he's a great guy, great player, and but I'll take the probably slightly less popular pick in Cam.
I mean, either way, I feel like whoever wins the job going into college football, you need two quarterbacks anyway. And in Utah's case last year, you needed three. And
for sure, injuries happen, stuff happens, whatever it is.
Guys getting benched.
Whatever happens, yeah.
But I feel like Utah's in a great spot as far as quarterback depth now.
I agree. I mean, I think definitely the top two going into this year are extremely capable, talented, reliable players. And I know there's younger talent underneath them. That you hope. Well, for me, I hoped at times a third quarterback was needed during the season. But from a team perspective, you don't want to have to be playing your third or fourth quarterback at any point during the season, ideally. Like you said, though, having two at some point, I don't know what the numbers are. I would guess that 75% of teams each year, rely on their second string quarterback for close, if not an entire game, a significant amount of a game or two or more.
I think, if I remember correctly, since Utah joined the Pac-12, they've only had the starting quarterback play in every single game and not either come out with injury or getting benched. And I think that was in 16 with Troy Williams, and I think Huntley in 19.
Maybe so, yeah.
I mean you were actually there for both, right? You were there with Troy Williams. And
that sounds right.
Yeah, and I mean, because then I think even before that, the last quarterback to play every single game was Brian Johnson.
Wow.
Which, 2008?
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that you need to have depth at quarterback rather than just have that one top guy.
You do, yeah. And that's the tough thing is if you're not that guy, it's easy to get down on yourself. But, I knew firsthand that you have to treat it like, okay, I got to be ready to be the guy this week, whether you're at 2 or 3. So should be in good hands there either way. Whoever gets the job, whoever's going to be slated at 2 to start. I'm excited to watch them, though. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And then final prediction heading into fall camp, the running back. I'm going to throw you a little bit of a softball. Who is the lead back heading into the opener?
I'll go with Mackay. That's probably.
I figured you would.
Recency bias, yeah, for me, just because I played with him again, so I guess both of my answers are a little biased. But I've just never seen the other guys, so I'll go with Mackay there. And like you said, I would expect that's a little bit of a not 100% by committee. You'd like to have one guy establish himself as kind of the top dog and your go-to guy. But diversity of skill sets and all that. Probably get a couple guys getting in the mix a little bit.
And then now the big announcement. I was saving it till the very end, but I'm happy to announce that Drew Lisk is joining the KSL Sports family, as he will be joining me. And we're actually kicking up our Utah Utes coverage this year. You know, with COVID and everything like that, it was really hard to get that dynamic coverage. But we're going to step it up this year, and we're going to do pregame and postgame streams, whether it's right here on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or on to YouTube, or we're going to alternate over to Instagram Live as well. We're going to kind of alternate between the two. And Drew Lisk is going to be joining me for pre and post game every single game to get your guys' reaction to every Utah football game, previewing them and everything like that, because this is going to be a really fun season. And, just going into the year, I felt like I needed somebody who knew this football team inside and out, and who better than the legend Drew Lisk to join me. So I'm really excited to be teaming up with you this season, to talk about football pre and post for every Utah football game this season.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
All right, Drew. So we'll probably be doing check-ins probably about every week now until fall camp wraps up, and then just in just a few short days and weeks, we will be checking out that brand spanking new renovation at Rice Cycle Stadium. Which, are you wishing you would have came back for one more year, just with NIL, with the new locker rooms, the new stadium? Maybe you could get another degree in that season. I mean, because from what I heard from Kyle Whittingham, you have like three college degrees, which is freaking nuts.
I don't know about that. I just got a major with a minor and then a master's, so kind of three, but the minors.
Well, also anyway, leading a comeback, yeah. But I mean, are you kind of wishing with all of this that has happened? It all happens after you leave. Do you feel slighted, or do you wish that maybe you would have came back one more year?
I think it's more of just bad timing. I'm pretty at peace right now with where I'm at. But yeah, I do have to check out that locker room and the newly renovated stadium. That's going to be sweet. Should be exciting.
Yeah. They're actually doing a public open house on August 21st for fans to go check it out. So they're going to do tours. You can go check out the brand new locker rooms, because from what I've heard, we were never allowed in the locker rooms as long as I've been covering. Your guys' locker rooms were pretty bad, right?
They weren't bad. It was just time for
an
upgrade.
Yeah, definitely an upgrade, and it's definitely that. Well, Drew, it's always good catching up with you. We will catch up next week on Instagram as we check out what the latest within Utah football as Camp Kyle begins today. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And there you go. That is Drew Lisk here on the Crimson Corner, live here on KSLSports.com's Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube pages.